You should be.
There it is.
There it is.
There it is.
All right.
Okay, so this is the fourth and final talk in our speaker series. I'm Jackie, the Town Sustainability Coordinator and Conservation Agent. So on behalf of the Sustainability Advisory Committee, thank you for being here and attending our speaker series. And hopefully we'll get a chance to do another speaker series in the future, but this is the last one of our spring series. And thanks also to the library for partnering with us on this.
Awesome. Thanks, Jackie. Hi, everyone. As Jackie said, I'm Molly Courson. I'm from the Ipswich River Watershed Association. I'm the Resiliency Program Director, which is really a fancy title, which just means I think about all the time what our work is and what it means for the future of the Ipswich River. So I look a lot at water conservation. I look a lot at land use. I look a lot at our advocacy and education programs. But tonight we're specifically here to talk about water conservation. Both things you can do at home and in your yard, and also I'll talk a little bit about what we're doing at IRWA, which is my nickname for the Ipswich River Watershed Association. It's just easier to say what we're doing at IRWA in kind of a broader context as it relates to water use and water management. So with that, we'll see if this clicker works. Yes, excellent. If you haven't heard of us, we are the voice of the Ipswich River. We work to protect nature and make sure there's enough clean water for people, fish, and wildlife today and for our children and theirs. That's our mission, and I think it's really important because it really gives context to everything that we're working towards. So we're not just looking at the Ipswich River today, we're looking at the Ipswich River of the future and trying to make sure that it's a sustainable future for all of us. We do this through 4 main program areas, and you'll kind of see these graphics here represent that. So restore, really thinking about restoration of stream flow, restoration of habitat. We have a whole team that works on these things. You might see us out looking at culverts, trying to remove dams. Protect, a lot of what I do will fall in under all of these buckets, but protect especially when we talk about advocacy, about what we're doing with the state legislature, about future thinking around land use policies and water policies, things like that. Engage, so we do a ton of engagement with the public. We have education programs for 5th grade, 7th grade. We have a high school internship program. We have 5 college interns this summer with us. We just got 3 of them onboarded already, so it's very busy in the office. And we also have a number of volunteer monitoring programs through our River Watch monitoring, which kind of falls under all of this because it helps us monitor, restore, protect the river. And then finally, last but certainly not least, is enjoy a lot of the events and public engagement that we do. We want people to get outside, enjoy the nature that you live in, enjoy the Ipswich River especially, and if you can get out on the water, absolutely do that. We think that to paddle the river is to fall in love with the Ipswich River. It's so beautiful. So we have at our headquarters in Ipswich, we have a number of boats. Oh, back the other way, go this way. Nope. Turn around. At our headquarters in Ipswich, if you are a member with us or if you are joining us for a public event, we have public paddles over the summer and access to kayaks, canoes, and then public trails. We have about 1,500 members across the watershed. Our watershed starts all the way actually in Burlington, if you can believe it or not, and then travels all the way to Ipswich and to the mouth of the Ipswich River at Plum Island Sound area, and we'll come back to that a little later. We are a 501c3 nonprofit, and if you're not a member, I would encourage you to consider it and let me know if you have any questions about it. But we're really lucky to work with such wonderful, engaged membership across the watershed who's really passionate about the river, about introducing more folks to the river and really helping us steward this resource that we have in our communities. So that's really great. A little bit about our staff. This is all of us. There are 11 full-time staff people and 1 part-time staff person now. Erin Bonnie Casey up there in the corner is our executive director, and you'll see Sarah, Ryan, and Neil are our restoration team. I'm right there in my waiters on the dock. My resilience program team is myself, Emma, and Zach. We've got Tracy, Carla, Sarah, and Leah in development, and then Gail, our part-time bookkeeper there. We're all very friendly. If you ever see us around, come say hi. But let's get into the good stuff. You're here about water conservation 101. Some of this that we might go over will seem pretty logical. Maybe you already know it. Always good to remind. Some of it, I hope, is new. I brought a lot of resources in the back for take-homes because I'm someone who needs like follow-up. You know, I like to see it, I like to learn it, but I also am going to need need that paper with me. So I've got some resources for you, and then also this presentation, if this gets posted, also has links. I can send them out. To things to help get you going. But water conservation is something that's really important generally, but something that we talk about a lot at IRWA, and so I want to give you some context as to why. So this is, as I said, our watershed. The watershed starts, the headwaters down in Burlington, Wilmington. Is this working anymore?
It just stopped, yeah.
Just
And
stopped.
you didn't touch it, I thought.
I didn't think I did.
It's back.
I just pressed it on.
It'll keep coming back.
It'll keep coming back on. Okay, so we'll just, if I hear it or you hear it, we'll just tap it back on, keep it going. Flows from Wilmington, North Reading, Middleton, you can see,
I think it's batteries.
yeah, all the way down to Plum Island Sound there. And so the watershed itself touches all or part of 21 communities. And that's a geographic watershed, right? So when I say watershed, I'm talking about any drop of water that falls within these geographic boundaries is going to flow to its lowest point, and eventually that point is the Ipswich River, which then flows out into the ocean. Awesome, but that's not all of the communities that drink our water, actually. That gets a little more complicated. So the Ipswich River and its 45 tributary streams cover an area of about 155 square miles. And we are part of the 20,000 acre Great Marsh ecosystem, a really important internationally recognized area for its expansive wetlands and salt marsh. The Ipswich River itself provides drinking water to 350,000 people and businesses in 12 communities. There's a little asterisk there because the 12 is really talking about public water supply. When you go back to this map, when you was talking about private wells, any private well within this geographic boundary is also pulling from, the same basin area. So I want you to think about there's a distinction there. And also, some of the communities who drink Ipswich River water, for example, Salem and Lynn, are located completely outside the geographic boundary. So there's lots of things to think about when we talk about water and water use that make it a little more complicated. The Ipswich River was listed as one of America's most endangered rivers in 2021, largely due to the impact of water withdrawals. So we're withdrawing a lot of water from the river, especially in the summertime when the river's at its lowest. And as we'll talk about a little later, our area is also pretty susceptible to drought. So this makes water conservation and the topic water conservation really important, and we're beating that drum all the time here at IRWA. And this is a varying statistic, and it varies by communities, but the amount of water used in the summer can be up to twice the year-round average, and that's mostly due to lawn watering, right? A lot of that is due to what we would consider non-essential water use, watering your lawn. I may be preaching to the choir, I don't know, but that's something that we are constantly kind of educating folks about. So I'm gonna try something. If it doesn't work, that's okay. We can do this verbally. You guys are kind of like my testers on this. If you have your smartphone and know how to do the QR code, you're gonna take that out right now, and this will take you to a quiz that we are going to do together. I've got it queued up on my phone. Let me know when you get there.
There.
Do you see a picture of a beaver saying guess the gallons?
Yep.
Yeah? What do you? Yep, okay, perfect. All right, and then I will get you started. Hold on, wait till everyone gets started.
I
there.
gotta put glasses anyway.
Yeah, I know, I'm sorry.
There.
All right, does everyone see, guess the gallon, the kind of title page there? Are you on it? Or if you're on it with next to a friend, you can participate. All right, is everyone there? Or almost everyone there? Nope, I'll give it a minute.
There you go. You're in.
Yeah, so then you'd wait for me. I'm gonna move it along.
No, it's a beaver.
Okay. All right, are you getting, is it popping up with a question for you?
Yes.
Great, okay, this is, oh, sorry. Oh, yeah, this is the problem is that there we go.
Yes.
Oh, okay. So
Wow.
Oh, sorry, can you guess? All right, people are guessing, great.
2%.
how do, yeah, that's what it's.
You want us to, I'm gonna shout out or?
You can shout it out to me too, that's fine too,
Oh, I see.
because we're kind of working with the technology here.
I'd say 2%. 2.
That's my answer is 2.
Anybody else? All right. So you're about right. It varies on who you ask. About 3% is freshwater, but a little less than 1% is accessible freshwater that we can use for drinking water. So think about that. So freshwater is a finite resource, right? So we really have to think about it in that way, and we don't necessarily grow up thinking about it in that way. So that's kind of a culture change. Let's see. Let's go. Will it go forward on me? No. All right. Okay. All right, can you guess which uses more water? You're going to get a selection in a second. Thanks for being my guinea pigs on this.
In Washington.
And watch it. You will be indoctrinated.
Yeah, okay. It'll wait to...
Because everybody took 3.64 seconds to respond. Or
You're right, everybody. Hand washing dishes. That's correct.
Oh, I got it.
Hand washing uses much more water, so use that dishwasher. I like to tell my husband, I'm just being water efficient here. Throw it all in the dishwasher. It's great. All right. You're going to have another one here. Bath or a shower? This should be pretty easy.
Bad.
Yeah, which one uses
I
more?
wanted shower.
Bad.
I think the shower does.
We'll find out in a minute.
Depends on how long the bath is.
Yeah, that's why the shower says 10 minutes. So that if you shower like certain people, maybe the shower would use more water, but in general, a bath is
Let's
gonna.
get through my long hair and it takes longer. You can go in for 2 minutes, maybe longer. But I don't take showers every day.
There you go,
Purposely
evens
don't
out.
do that.
If you take a cold shower, you get really done fast.
Yeah, that's so
Yes.
fast.
When you're washing your hair, it's pretty brutal.
All right, we got 2 more. Flushing toilet or brushing teeth with the tap on?
Flushing toilet.
I think the toilet, depending on what kind of flow you have. Coming from the area where toilets are.
So I think the key there was with the tap on. If you leave that tap running,
It depends how long you brush your teeth. If you
well, you should be brushing your teeth for the dentist recommended amount.
2 minutes.
And don't.
Just
All right. Last one, and this is kind of a guesstimate. How much water
much.
might take to water your lawn for an hour? Less.
An obscene amount.
200 gallons.
An obscene amount.
More.
1 hour?
You left your sprinkler on for an hour, how much water could that guy use?
100 gallons.
Oh, getting some guesses in there.
No.
Oh, sorry, went back.
Excuse me.
3 gallons.
So
a minute.
much water. It could use up to 1,000 gallons.
Whoa.
Yeah.
That could be a lot of, right? That's a lot. That's way more than I had ever thought, right?
Well, it's way more than is realistic.
Yeah, that's way more. It's
I
way
mean,
more than what your lawn needs.
3 gallons, but 3 gallons a minute is the normal flow out of the well, right? That's 180 gallons.
All right. I think it should all be done on your phone.
Yeah.
Thank you for doing that. That was, I know.
It worked.
It worked. Good. This was a tester. This was to see if I can use it again in the future. I'll have to get a little better at it. All right. So we're using lots of water. We want to figure out ways to be more efficient about that. We'll start by talking about what we can do inside our home, and then outside our home, and then other ways that we're looking at the bigger picture of water use and water management. So, of course, again, some of these very logical, and you may already know. Saving water indoors, fixing leaks. So, the average family can waste 180 gallons a week or over 9,000 gallons of water annually from household leaks. And this is very simple stuff. Even today at our office, we discovered a leak coming from the toilet, and we were like, well, we gotta fix this right now because this is just stuff that can add up. And it's just one of those things that you're not necessarily always thinking about checking for dripping pipes or faucets, but they actually can waste a lot of water. And so the EPA recommends checking at least once annually. There's Fix a Leak Week, it's always in March. I try to do a blog post every year on it now to remind people, like, you know, it's about that time, you're thinking about cleaning out the basement for spring, maybe look at your pipes and what's going on. But that's a huge one, and that's true for individual households, true for town infrastructure as well. Fixing leaks can do a lot to save us water. Turning off the tap. This is a big one that we just saw with this quiz. So turning off the tap while brushing your teeth can save 8 gallons of water per day. I'm assuming that's you brushing for the dentist recommended amount of time, not my son's recommended amount of time, which is you know. And 10 gallons of water, or 8 gallons of water per day, that's a lot of water. If you add that, make sure the tap is off while you're shaving, approximately saving another 10 gallons of water per day. So let's assume you brush your teeth twice a day, and you shave maybe 5 times per week. That's over 5,000 gallons a year that you just saved. So it's small stuff that adds up, which is what I like to remind people, that it can feel like, well, what I'm doing doesn't make a difference. It does. It does. And so I like to remind people of that. And as we also talked about, letting your faucet run while you're washing the dishes can waste 10 gallons of water and also uses enough energy to power a 60-watt light bulb for 18 hours. So if you think about the relationship between how we use water in the house and also energy, there's energy efficiency built into water conservation. So we're 2 birds, 1 stone sort of thing, which is great. And that gets also to what we're all kind of more mainstream now, is all these efficient appliances. They're great, and they do save water, and it makes loading your dishwasher and letting it go much more water efficient than hand washing your dishes. And so one of the things that we like to recommend to people, and even recommend to towns, is how can we get programs installed that help upgrade people's appliances during new builds. Let's make sure that all the appliances are efficient always, so that we're just starting off on a better baseline here. We can all use at least 20% less water by installing water efficient fixtures and appliances. And then, of course, taking shorter showers. This says taking shorter and colder showers, and as a scalding hot shower taker myself, I take shorter showers. But yes, thinking about how often we're using all of that water in that space and making sure we're being
Does
efficient
the
about it.
colder shower make you take a shorter shower?
Well, there we go, true. And that, again, that's a both water and energy thing, right?
Yeah, all right.
So you're kind of hand in hand with that. The big one, I think, though, is saving water outside. This is where some of our biggest savings can come in. Outdoor water use accounts for more than 30% of total household water use on average, but in some areas of the country that are really, really dry, that can be as much as 60% of the total household water use. So we're using a lot of water outdoors. The EPA estimates that if an average sized lawn in the United States is watered for 20 minutes every day for 7 days, it's like running the shower constantly for 4 days or taking more than 800 showers. So it's just when you think about when you really start to think about where your water use is going, it's kind of a take a step back moment, like, oh man. So of course, turn off your sprinklers. Grass only needs about 1 inch of water per week, which we'll usually get from rainfall. We're going to talk about drought in a minute. And at Irwa, we say just don't water your lawn. Learn how to not water. Also, rethink your lawn for it to become a space that's not going to need that constant watering. That kind of leads to number 2, which is switching from normal types of installations we would see around here, like bluegrass, to native plants, to fescue grasses, to other options that don't require the type of monitoring and that even don't require the type of mowing. There's a lot of amazing drought-tolerant species, and I know you had earlier in this series we had the monarch gardener, and so you maybe heard a lot about plants. We'll do a little bit of plants in a minute, but there's lots of options out there to rethink your space. Installing a rain barrel. I did a rain barrel workshop in Ipswich in March. Rain barrels are really great because you get to collect the water when it rains, and then you can use it when it's when you're in drought, and maybe when you're not allowed to water your lawn from a sprinkler. Guess what? You don't need a sprinkler. You've got a rain barrel. As I mentioned, lawn watering occurs during the time of year when we have the least amount of precipitation generally, and it's also some of the hottest, driest days. So we're dealing with a dry ground, we're dealing with low river flows, we're dealing with less rain, but we're also, ironically, using the most amount of water at that time. I think I have one more. My little favorite fact about a rain barrel. Just a 1/4 inch of rainfall on a typical roof will fill a rain barrel, which is about 55 gallons. And that will water almost a 200 square foot garden. So you can get a lot out of having pretty simple pieces of technology in your space, which is great. And we'll talk a little more about what that might look like. So you'll see on this logo here, Greenscapes, Irwa, along with Salem Sound Coast Watch and the Merrimack Valley Planning Commission, we are part of a coalition called Greenscapes North Shore Coalition. We work on both stormwater and water conservation issues kind of collectively, and I've got some tools back there on the table for y'all to take home as you need. But so when I say greenscapes, I'm really talking about rethinking your outdoor space for increasing efficiency, decreasing water use, and kind of having a better habitat overall. So there's kind of 3 main ways to think about this. Lawn replacement and modification, and I have some good visuals to go along with this. So decreasing what we think of a typical lawn size, and when I say lawn, I really just mean that typical turf grass, right? That's what I mean when I say lawn. And instead thinking of your space as a way to infiltrate and capture stormwater when it's there, and also your space is more of a habitat. There are layers to it. It's not just one flat lawn space. As you heard from the monarch gardener, probably if you were there for that, using native plants that require less water, that require less maintenance because they're attuned to their surroundings, and that also can become great habitats, which is excellent. And then when we think about infiltrating water, there are 2 types of infrastructure approaches. So there's gray infrastructure, which is built things. So if you're putting in a cistern, a rain barrel, porous pavement on your driveway, and then there's green infrastructure, which is exactly what it sounds like. So rain gardens, bioswales, this green roofs, anything to do with plants is just green.
Bioswale.
Bioswale, I'll show you. Yeah. Lawn misconception. Irrigation water goes into the ground and recharges groundwater and replenishes the aquifer. Actually, generally, most of this water is lost to evapotranspiration or runoff because as you drive along anywhere in the North Shore, you see sprinklers going off in the middle of the day, hottest time of the day. That's not soaking into the ground. It's going up or it's running down the pavement. So misconception that irrigation is actually replenishing our aquifers.
Does it run off and eventually get into the aquifer?
No, most stormwater runoff is either directed into the nearest body of water. So for example, there's outfalls into the Ipswich River itself, and that goes out to the ocean. So when we think about capturing runoff, we're really thinking about infiltration where it is as opposed to directing it somewhere else. So here are some examples of what I'm talking about. Rain gardens on the left here. So it's a space where you can kind of see slope into the lawn. It's a natural kind of wet area, right? You know that water is going to be kind of circling to that place, so you know that there's the ability to plant plants there that are going to help soak it up. This is what I mean kind of by a bioswale. This is actually one for a parking lot, but a similar sort of thing can be applied to a residential property. So you've got a natural slope that's going to run off the parking lot this way. On this side, you see you've got drainage area and pipes that are going to take the water from here down here. What this rock doing is actually helping filter water. And then this space is all going to be planted, so it's going to help. The filtration helps clean the water, and then this helps soak the water into the ground. And similar techniques, less complicated, can be applied to any space. Up in the right corner there, that's an example of permeable pavement. That's a parking area. Because permeable pavement requires different maintenance than regular pavement, one of the easiest ways for towns to use it, for example, is to pave parking area but not travel lanes. If that makes sense. Travel lanes are just have a lot more wear and tear. Parking area is a little less so, so it's a little easier to maintain. So that's an example of that. That allows, again, stormwater to infiltrate in between those areas and actually underneath, usually a type of gravel, a loose base that water can filter down into. And there's your rain barrel. Classic. Let's see, where am I? Oh, so these are my visuals, because if you're like me, and maybe, when I came into this job, I'm not by nature a gardener. I've been learning, right? I've been learning for a long time as I became an adult, but when I, look at a space and I'm just like, oh, there's grass and not grass, a tree, and how do I do this? So my question to, especially when working with landscape designers, people make it accessible to me because I need the most help. And so I love this visual because it's kind of, okay, here's our lawn space, right? Here's our home, here's the parking area. I'm going to point out these lines. This was developed specifically for a project that I was working on that ran along a river and had large wetland boundaries. So that's why we've got a wetland here. And what these lines signify is what you can kind of do in relation to the wetland. Because as Jackie will tell you, if you're within a certain distance, especially within this 100-foot buffer, you need to ask the Conservation Commission, make sure it's an approved activity, or if you need to get a permit to do what you need to do, so that's why those are marked. But right now we're just like, grass, tree, parking. How do we think about this space as a more dynamic area that can infiltrate water? Okay, so I don't necessarily need the entire lawn space for my kids to play soccer, but that lawn space is great and it's flat, so I'm gonna keep that up there. So what can I do with the rest of it? I can create a little stormwater basin, a little bioswale essentially, where I know I get a lot of runoff in wet area. Let's just go with that because that's what's happening naturally. I can add pervious pavement in my parking. I can take this area, I'm gonna throw some wildflower seeds, I'm gonna let it kind of go to a meadow. And then I don't have to mow it as much. I don't have to water it at all. So you can kind of see that there are different ways to think about the space that you use versus the space that you don't maybe actively use for seating or playing or things like that. And now as all these spaces kind of transition, I'm also creating habitat. I'm creating less work for me, which as a lazy gardener, I call myself now. That's, that works for me. So what do we want eventually when we're thinking about outside water conservation? We want a hydrologically functional lot that the goal is to really infiltrate that stormwater while also using less water. Best of both worlds. So you can kind of, again, this is a different kind of image above, but you can put rain gardens in places where you know water is naturally going to be flowing to. This is kind of that open drainage. It's going to just look like grass, right? Just look like a grass stream swale down there. Native trees. As you kind of plant native plants, as you work with your soil, actually I would say soil restoration can be a huge benefit even to regular grass. If you have healthy soils, your plants will also need less water. You'll need to do less work eventually as your soil becomes healthier. I'm not the greatest person to speak to about this as I'm still learning. However, I have good resources on that from the experts. So if you're trying to grow things, but you're like, I'm really thinking like the soil that we have here is not working, don't worry. There's so many resources for how to turn that over to have a healthier space. So as I said, the greenscapes result, less maintenance, higher ecological value. If you're using some recommendations from the Monarch Gardener, hopefully more butterflies, lower impact on water resources. The goal is really, no, you shouldn't have to, beyond establishing plants, which you do always have to establish new plants, not watering your lawn. Sometimes lower flood risk, depending on if you are solving some stormwater runoff that you might have on your space, helping protect groundwater, helping with water filtration, and helping shift this kind of normal idea we have of outside space, what we consider normal and what could actually be accomplished. So, some resources, some that I brought and others that I can email links directly. I brought Greenscapes guides. These are great because it's kind of, a top to bottom layout of what to plant, when to plant, how to make your soil healthier, a calendar even throughout the year, best time to do things. So definitely pick up one of those. If you are just getting started with native plants, the Massachusetts Native Plant Palette is great. It can help you, it's an online tool, but it can help you search, whether you want shrubs, whether you want flowers, is it sunny or do you have kind of a shady lawn? It helps you search through all of that. Really helpful to narrow down because I know sometimes just going to a plant nursery can be a very overwhelming experience if you're not quite sure what you want. So you can absolutely start there. In calculating your own water use, the state does have a great water use calculator that you can even pick the area of your house, say kitchen. I have a water efficient dishwasher, but I don't have an efficient XYZ. Put it in and they'll help give you calculation and see maybe where there's some areas for water savings. Drought resilient landscape templates. I'm actually working on these as a project with the town of Ipswich, so these will be coming soon. We're very excited about that. Specifically, some of the sections we saw on that lawn piece, those in more detail, really focused on drought resilience because we think converting lawns to drought resilient spaces is super, super important. So more to come on that. We're very, very excited about that. But I also wanted to talk a little bit about what we're doing at the Ipswich River kind of from a large scale. Because I don't know if you've noticed, we've been in drought for a while. And it may seem like to everyone that drought is almost the new normal. right? We've been in drought since last year. This is actually the latest drought map. It says April 15th, but this actually came out in maybe last week or the week before. And so we're currently in a level 3, not great. We went down from a level 2, downgraded, right? We're getting worse, and that's not great. And so on the Ipswich River itself is very susceptible to drought conditions. The river's pretty low already. We're looking at less precipitation already this year. So we're going to see what happens over the summer. But right now we're in critical drought. It requires affected communities to implement a ban on non-essential outdoor water use. However, that gets implemented in kind of a patchwork way across municipalities. I'm going to tie that to what we're doing at the State House in a minute. But I wanted you all to know that you have the ability to report dry environmental conditions and submit photos to the state on this if you see things in your community that are related to drought. Please report that up to the task force. And actually about 2/3 of the United States at the end of May was in a state of drought. So this is not just us, this is across the country. There was a great article that came out last week all about how we're seeing stronger storms, but also how we're seeing stronger drought. And this is all the impact of climate change, right? And the earth getting warmer, temperatures getting warmer. So, yeah.
So I've been saving this question, so I don't know whether this is the right time, but
Yeah.
it's my understanding that, I'm going to make up a number, only half the communities in the Ipswich River Watershed are under any kind of controls by the state. So your item 1 there, requiring affected communities to implement a ban on non-essential. Well, that happens in Topsfield, but it doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So what's being done about that?
Great question. This is
Okay.
the drought bill, and this is a piece of state legislation that we have been pushing for a number of years, and we're hoping to get it across the finish line this legislative session. So you're right. Right now, when drought is declared, each municipality implements their own water conservation measures, and it's very confusing. And residents of one town have different rules than residents of another town. Right now, the state's saying, here's what you should be doing, but everyone's doing something differently. This would give the Drought Management Task Force statutory authority to say this is what everybody is doing for this region. So to require uniform water conservation across a drought region during severe droughts. And again, to affect non-essential outdoor watering. I have some more information on that bill in the fact sheet. But yeah, that's true right now, is that right now 8 towns do kind of town by town things. And we need to really be effective across the region, we need like uniform standards.
Is it true that Topsfield is required by some state agency to implement water bans?
So there are some things in certain towns required to your Water Management Act permit, and that would trigger when certain water conservation measures go into effect. And so, but that's not necessarily tied to the drought declaration. That's tied to a rule or regulation in your Water Management Act permit. So your permit to withdraw from the basin will also set out different water conservation measures. Most of those are tied to stream flow. I don't want to speak out of turn of what Topsfield is tied to, but that's a little different than drought, although they tend to get triggered around the same time.
But some towns don't have any triggers.
Some towns don't have any triggers. Yep,
So
exactly.
they have green lawns,
Yep.
and we have brown lawns.
But under this, if it's a drought for everybody,
Right, but
The
as
drought
it
rules.
exists today,
correct.
so do we know which towns have green lawns and which towns have brown lawns?
I feel like we could drive through and find them. But the other thing I'll say is people, when we go back to the point I made about private wells earlier, some people will have a private irrigation well. They'll be like, well, I'm not on town water, so I don't need to follow conservation because it's my private
Well,
well.
but that's an education thing.
It is an education thing, but yes, it is an education thing.
Okay, so what's the state of this bill?
This bill, so it was in the Senate version of the bond bill. This bill was passed as an amendment in that version of the bond bill. Now we're looking at the House. The House has to pass their version of the bond bill, so we're trying to also get it into that version. Usually what happens is those two versions will go into what we call conference that will happen in this summer. So passed in the Senate version, awesome, very excited. We want to also see it in the House version, which gives it the best chance of coming out
So
of
it
conference.
could be as soon as this summer.
I hope so. Well, we'll see, yeah. We could,
Okay.
we've been working very hard on that, so we're so close to the finish line. Let me just highlight with the, oh my gosh, time flies when you're having fun. A couple of other things that we're working on. So I have a couple of copies of this in the back. This is more geared towards municipalities, but I think there's some helpful information, especially if you're serving on a board or committee. A recipe for water resiliency aimed at kind of examining land use, local land use and water policies that could be amended to promote water conservation, to promote this idea of water neutral growth, of water neutral development, and how to reduce demands on local water resources through kind of your municipal setup. So there's a lot of great things in there. And I try to work with our municipalities on bylaw changes and regulation changes. IRWA is also a participant in the North Shore Water Resilience Task Force. So this is a group of all of the communities within the Ipswich River Watershed, as well as the Ipswich River Watershed Association, working to advance long-term solutions to improve water supply resilience and ecosystem health in the Ipswich River. So we recognize, everybody recognizes that we have a regional challenge and we need a regional solution, and it's not just one town that is going to identify and then be able to implement a solution for a whole watershed. And it's a different kind of planning paradigm for our area because we are so locally focused in many ways. You know, we're very town by town, municipality by municipality, but this is really a regional look at what we can do so that everybody, that we have enough water for people and we have enough water for the river. That's the whole point. So the task force has a website. They've got, you know, the work that they've done is posted there. You can see what's going on, and you can see who your representative from, you know, the town is participating in that. But that's also been a really big effort for us to be a part of these regional conversations and hopefully regional solutions. And then we talked about the drought bill a little bit. That is really the end of my presentation. If you want to see us at Ipswich River Park in North Reading, we have a big family-friendly event called Riverfest. If you want to do something about water conservation in your community, let me know. Happy to come out, or if you have project ideas, or if you just want to know more about what we're getting up to, please let me know. And with that is my presentation with 10 minutes to spare. Perfect. Thank you.